This lesson we're going to be looking at more common array methods. So they allow us to manipulate the data that's contained within the array. And these are very useful methods helping us with our coding and do more with the contents of arrays. So looking at various array methods, also JSON parse and JSON stringify that allow us to convert an object to a string and then also a string to an object as long as the structure is proper. Also how we can use the toString method in order to convert an array into a string, so converting them to different data types. And this is very common and useful within JavaScript coding. So there are array methods to join and create a brand new string with a separator, so using the join method for arrays. Also how you can concatenate, so merging two arrays together. You can also duplicate the contents of an array. So I've got some examples of this coming up. This lesson we're going to be looking at more array methods. So first let's create our new array that we're going to be using. So using the square brackets in order to create the array and add in some random content into the array so that we have something to work with. And also maybe we want to throw an object in there as well. And then comma separate it and add another value. So we've got a couple values there within the object. Let's log the array out. Just do a console log and log out the contents of the array. And now let's run it in the terminal, just make sure everything is okay. So we got the contents being output from the array. Just clear that. Other additional content. And now let's look at some of the array methods that we didn't get to in the last lesson. So you can actually turn the contents of an array into a string. So that's by using the toString format. So let's create a value and take the contents of my array 1 and then apply the toString method. And this is actually going to convert the array into a string. So let's run the code one more time. And now we see we get the contents being converted into a string. And it isn't able to pick up the object information. So there is a way to do that. And that's using the JSON parse and JSON stringify. So if you want to actually get the object information to a string, we can use those methods. And those are also very useful methods within JavaScript. So let's set the value of val, take my array 1. And instead of using the array method, so this isn't actually an array method, we have an option to do the JSON stringify. So this is one of the JSON methods that we can make use of, but it is useful in this case. So we've got an object within the array, and we saw that the string necessarily didn't translate the object details. So now if we do a stringify, that's going to convert that whole object into a string format. And if we actually want to get it back into an object format, there's also JSON parse. So now that we've got the contents within a string format, we can parse it, and that's going to turn it back into a usable object format. So there we've got our content back into a usable object format. And the interesting side result of this is that now if we make some updates to val, it's no longer associated with the memory location because now we've turned it into a string and then we've created a brand new array object by using the JSON parse method. So if we make some updates to val, and let's just select the first item there in val, and we'll just write updated. So let's see what the two arrays are, and we see that one is changed and the other one is still the same. So the my array is still on original. There's also, when you do have contents, you can also turn it into a string by specifying how you want to separate the string content. So let's create another array. And this is just going to be a string array. So we're not going to include any of the JSON stuff, and it's just going to be a straight string for the array. So we've got the second array is 1, 2, 3. And we can actually just use that down here at the bottom. So we've got a second array, and we want to turn this into a string. So let's use val again. And I'll copy the console message of val out here. So we're updating the value of val. And that's why we can't use const, because we're updating the actual value that val is being associated with. It's being assigned to val. So let's take the contents of my array 2 and use the join method and see what we get for val. So when we output it, remember we've got the new array, and this array contains 1, 2, 3, and now we've joined it together, and it's just a comma separated string. So this is another format as well to turn it into a string. And you can also, the nice thing about join is you can specify. So if you do need a specific type of separator, and sometimes these are useful. So if we want to, for instance, separate it, the different items within the myArray2 with this type of format, we can do that using join. So it just puts the separator as whatever characters we've put between the string value here within the parameters of join. We can also concatenate two strings together, and that's one way to join strings together. So we can take the value of the first array. So we're just reassigning the value of val. So we're taking the first array, so array 1 or array 2, depending on whatever order you want to join them together, and use concat. And the concat method then requires a parameter, and this is going to be the other array that you want to join together. So let's see that result. And now we've got the two arrays joined together. And notice the way that the order is that we've got 1, 2, and 3. So we get the array 2, and it's joining that first array to that. So if you want to reverse the order of those, you can as well. And let's try concatenating an array to itself. And this is another interesting thing that you can do, because this completes, again, creates a whole separate array. And what we've done is we've just joined the data from one array to the other. So we've joined the array in itself, effectively duplicating the contents of the array. So that's another result that you can do to get the contents of the array. This lesson's we're going to be showcasing some more commonly used array methods. So looking to see if an array includes a certain value, and that's going to return back a Boolean, so either true or false. Index of is another method, and this is going to get the index value of an item in the array. And you can also use index of to check to see if the item is included. If it's not within the array, it's going to return back a -1. Otherwise, it's going to return back the value of the index position of the item in the array. So also checking to see if an object, so if the object is an array, so if it's a valid array, so there is a way in JavaScript to use the isArray method to verify that this particular object is an array. And then also some other useful methods for arrays. There's also useful methods that return back Boolean values. So if, for instance, we want to check to see if an array includes a certain value, let's use val again and take the myArray1, or we'll take myArray2. And using the includes method, we just need to specify what is the needle that we're looking for. So we'll look for the word 2. And now val gets returned back true because we did find an instance of 2. So let's say we're looking for 4, and we get returned back false because there is no instance of 4. So includes is a useful way to do it in Boolean, and you can also do this within a condition statement where you're checking to see if it exists, if a particular value exists within an array. There's also when you're using index of, so this is going to actually return back the index, the position of the item of the array, And this is also another way that you can check to see if something is included, because if it's not found within the array, you're going to get a return value of -1. So you can use that within the condition to check to see if the array has an index value. So using the index of method of 2, and let's see what gets returned back for val. So we get an index value of 1. If we're looking for something that doesn't exist within the array, we're going to get an index value of -1. And then you can apply that within the conditions. We can also check to see if an item or if an array is an array. So let's try that as well for our next method that we want to try out. And we can check to see if my array 2, and we see that is array. And actually this is just array because we're using the array method. So we need to indicate that we're looking within the array for the array method is array. And then within the rounded brackets, this is actually where we place the name of the array with the name of the array. It's expecting to have the array within that argument. So let's see what gets returned back. And it looks like we're throwing an error because some of this content here was missing. So let's refresh that, run the code one more time, and we get a Boolean value that's being returned back. So if this is an array, then it's going to return back a Boolean value. And if we're looking at a value that isn't an array, then we're also getting a Boolean value, so either true or false. Arrays have a lot of useful methods, so this lesson we're going to be exploring some more of the useful methods that are contained within arrays. So showing you how to copy and create a new array, update an existing array by updating the sort, order, and also reverse methods, getting the index value of an item, so we're going to be using the last index of, as well as index of, in order to return an item that's contained within the array and then return back the index value of that item. Also, we're going to check to see if an item is within an array, so using the includes method or index of methods, and I'll show you how to do that with some examples on arrays coming up in this lesson. We can also get the last index of, so very similar to index of, but if you have multiple values of 2, so let's say for instance, we've got it occurring several times within the array, and we want to get the last instance of, so the index of will return back the first occurrence of it, and we also have last index of, so that will return back the last occurrence and the index value for the last occurrence. So let's see how that turns out, and I gotta comment this one out. So we get the index of 7 as the last occurrence of the value of 2. There's also sorting of the array data. So this actually sorts the contents in place. So if you do the my array and sort, and we'll just log out the array before and after. So there's no response on this, as it's going to take whatever the my array object contents are, and it will sort them in place. So we've got the sorted arrays. So original array and then the sorted arrays. And these are sorted alphabetically, so it's not numerically there, it's alphabetically. So that's why we've got 1, 3, and the 3 because the H is before the W in the alphabet. You can also do a reverse sort as well. So reverse just does the opposite, where it reverses the order of the array. So again, this is in place. So let's select the name of the array, and this is going to sort it in place, but it's going to sort it within reverse order. And once again, being sorted alphabetically. So it's going to take whatever values we have here, and it's going to sort them alphabetically. So that's why we're starting with 2. So if we had, for instance, if we had the letter Z in there and the letter A, these would then be placed in the beginning of the array on the reverse, and on the sort, the A would be first within that new array order. So shifting that current array in place. Go ahead and try it out. Create some arrays,
sort the order, do a reverse sort of the order, output the results into the console log, and we've got a few other array methods that are coming up.